Record. Perfect. So I've started recording. So, all right. Hi, everybody. This is our fourth fireside chat at Startup Grind University of Minnesota chapter. And just to get started, sharing some values of Startup Grind. It's a great community, global community of entrepreneurs. You can check it out at startupgrind.com. And I just want to start with sharing the values of Startup Grind, right? And as it can share on my t-shirt as well. Give first, help others, and make friends. And just to be specific, give first before taking help from others, help others before asking for help, and make friends, not contacts. That's what are the core values of Startup Grind as a community. And just a bit about the Startup Grind chapter, University of Minnesota. I am the director of the chapter. I'm a PhD student at the UMN, computer science student. And Ben is a co-director with me, and he could not join us today. And we host events like this. We will love for you to reach out to us if you want to be speaker at our next event, or if you want to support us in any other way. All right. With this, let's just get started with the amazing speaker that we have. This is May. So it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have really a great speaker for this month, Aneela Idnani. She's the co-founder and president of HabitAware, and she, there's so much to speak about, her, and there's a lot to learn. HabitAware itself as a company has bagged so many awards, awards from 2018 Best Innovation Award from Time Magazine, the Washington Post, Prevention Magazine, BuzzFeed, and the list goes on. And also, Aneela has co-invented the device that is used for the company, and also she's a TEDx speaker. She's a mentor at LaunchMN and BetaMN organization. So there's a lot that we're going to learn from you, Anila, today. We really thank you for giving your time for this event. And with this, let's get started.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, and especially during Mental Health Awareness Month, so we can talk about some very common mental health conditions that people don't even know about.
Mm-hmm. Yes, awesome. Thank you. And if I look over there and stuff like that, don't be bothered because I'm making some notes as we are learning from you.
Sure.
Yeah, awesome, cool. So just to quickly get started, I actually wanted to know you better, and you wanted the community to know you better. So how about we just start with a little bit of the background, based on what I read a little bit about you. You are a first generation American Indian, grew up in New York. But I would let you share. Why don't you share a little bit about your background, your upbringing, and what do you think led you to probably choose the path what you have so far?
Yeah, so I grew up in New York. My parents moved here from India in probably 1975. So, but I'm born and raised in New York. So, moved to Minneapolis about 10 or 11 years ago. And I don't know. I mean, you said what led me to starting a company or to where I am. And it's really the doors just kind of opened and shut as they needed to get me to where I am today. Some of it was painful in the moment, but recognizing that it all kind of had to happen for a reason. So I grew up in Long Island, New York, went to school for undergrad for accounting, and worked in audit for a few years, and then went back to school because I just was not finding it to be exactly what I wanted to be doing. So I went back to school for advertising. I wanted to be doing something more creative, and kind of just looking back at my childhood, it was the scrapbooking and the art and the drawing and photography that really I enjoyed. So I went back to school for advertising and did that for about 8 years. And then the doors just kind of started opening for this, the aha moment for the idea for HabitAware, and then the actual creation of the product to help the mental health community that we serve, which is the people with body focused repetitive behaviors, or BFRBs. That's just on my shirt. I can't. There we go. So yeah, hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That was a nice overview of things in the journey so far. I was gonna come to details about HabitAware and stuff like that even later in the conversation. Here I wanted to even maybe, just because the speakers that we talk to, I feel like sometimes the way you grow up, and there's certain incidents in your life that kind of shape you towards where you lead to. And just curious more about like your experience in New York. I know I read a bit there, you did your college in New York, then you worked at EY for a few years in accounting, as you're mentioning, before you went back to college in Miami, correct? And that's where also you were thinking of going to Madrid, but you decided to stick to the Miami campus,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. You did
Right.
your research.
I did my research.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it just, when I was in high school, my father fell sick with cancer, and so for my entire high school career, he was in the hospital. My junior year, my summer before senior year, he passed away. So it was a really hard time. And during that time, it was the 90s, so it wasn't the way it is today. And even today, it's not amazing the way people handle sickness and death, but I think there's more uh, openness about stuff now. But when we were, going through it, only our close friends knew. Nobody at school really knew. Teachers didn't know. So it was just like kind of hiding it. And that hiding makes your mind kind of not function the way that you want it to function. So
Mhm.
I started pulling out my hair as a coping mechanism for a lot of that stuff. I know, also just like high school stress and some of the other stuff going on as well. So that was kind of I guess not my childhood, but more like my entry into adulthood and into
Mhm.
college life. And then I went to school for accounting. I think in looking back, I really enjoyed accounting because it was like this nice balance of debits and credits, and it was a big giant puzzle, but it all fit together. And I think that really spoke to my anxiety
Mhm.
that I had, and that was kind of very calming, that I would get, a problem in accounting class and be able to solve it, and everything was balanced.
Mhm.
And so I think that's what drove me to continue to study it in undergrad and then to work in it for a few years. But I think because it wasn't the bookkeeping that I had originally learned, and it was more on the audit side, that I lost that connection with it, that balance that I was seeking.
Mhm.
So then it became something that actually just brought me more frustration.
And that's when you decided to maybe
Yeah.
pursue something else
So
and go
that's
for
when I
school.
decided to pursue advertising, in looking at kind of looking back at my childhood and finding all the things that I really loved to do were making scrapbooks and writing and photography and that kind of thing.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I realized that you are more of a creative head in things, right? Like your journey, you have then moved on to marketing and kind of tried to do a lot of work for really great brands.
Hmm.
Um, right. And that sounds amazing. So I just wanted to move more towards those next things, right? So you
Yeah.
moved to Miami, started doing your school in advertising, and you also met the love of your life there,
Yeah.
right? So when you then so that's when you can then started working in advertising and marketing industry, correct?
Yep.
So how about we just touch more about like what do you think you learned in those experiences when you were working in different marketing for brands? And I feel like it was a varied like range of stuff, right? Like when you're working at Strawberry Frog, you were kind of in different kind of zones versus when you moved to Minneapolis and you started doing some marketing here also for big brands. So would you like
Yeah.
to maybe share certain things that you learned or experiences in that journey?
Yep. Yeah. So I worked at Strawberry Frog, which is a boutique agency in New York City, and then I worked at Ogilvy, which is a larger kind of agency also in New York City. And then when I moved here to Minneapolis, I was working at Carmichael Lynch and Fallon. And all four, the I mostly worked not on the creative side, but more on the business side. So it kind of became this cool hybrid of I could handle creative stuff if I needed to, but I was more on the analytical and business side of things, either managing the client or managing the project or the
Mhm.
production of. Um, and then I went kind of more into the digital focus of the creative. So I was able to use a lot of my skills from accounting and doing, statement of works and budgeting and all that stuff, but then also use all of that I learned in the advertising school to kind of help with creative and strategy and a lot of that side of the thinking process as well. And the biggest insight that I have from the advertising world is that it is the entrepreneurial process.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that instead of creating a business or a product, it's the end result is an ad campaign. But you're working through the same exact steps of who is your target market, what problem are you trying to solve for them, how are you going to message to them, how are you going to speak to them, where are you going to find them, what media channels, and then, like I said, it's instead of trying to sell them well, I mean, you're still trying to sell them a product, but
Mm-hmm.
it's more the product is the ad campaign
Mm-hmm.
versus the actual product. So if anyone is interested in entrepreneurship, I highly recommend working in an ad agency first because it walks you through all of those steps from strategy to, creative ideation and execution and getting to market.
Mm-hmm. Wow, wow, that's amazing. So that kind of sets the story of maybe that gave you the background of like a mini startup within an organization where you had the entire flow of kind of building a product and selling it, but the product is an ad and selling it to the customers who like narrowing down to the folks, which is the right folk target market, and just selling the ad
Exactly.
campaign there. That's amazing. And so do you think because you said that anybody who want to be an entrepreneur, maybe if they have an opportunity they should try an ad agency, do you think it's ad agency or probably different, like kind of all problems in life are the same, like you have to understand who you're solving for and sell it to the folks, like uh,
Yeah, I mean, that's the formula I think that, works the best. It's try to understand the who and the problem before you just jump to a solution.
mhm.
Because otherwise, you wind up having to jam a square peg in a round hole.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you. So amazing. And then you over time with this different experiences of marketing, specifically advertising agency, you then moved on to actually trying your own journey. And I think before HabitAware, you worked on kids around, correct?
Yeah, yep.
Would you love to share a little bit about that experience? How was that experience? Do you think that gave you the base setup of you know uh, creating an organization that kind of helped you jump onto HabitAware next?
Yeah, so when we moved here to Minneapolis, we obviously didn't really know that many people, and to make friends, we lived in a building that did a lot of events, so we met people through that. And then we also just, I was really interested in that intersection of digital technology and advertising, so I would go to
Mm-hmm,
a lot of
mm-hmm,
these tech events. And then that's kind of how I fell into the like mobile app development type stuff and just, augmented reality and chatbots and just trying to learn, how can we serve our clients better in the ad world to create better creative to, reach customers? Like how can we be different?
mm-hmm,
Leverage technology to cut through all the noise of social media and no one watches TV anymore and that kind of thing.
mm-hmm,
um, and so that's how we kind of got into the tech community here. And then there was a startup weekend Twin Cities where it was an event to just pitch an idea. And I pitched an idea that I had had for ages, like pre-iPhone days, but kind of converted it into an iPhone idea. um, for basically a mobile app that helped kids to, you know, leverage the phone screen to actually explore their world and take photos and create scrapbooks of their
mm-hmm,
travels. And so worked on that for a little while with a co-founder. It definitely did help me strengthen my confidence in my ability as an app design,
mm-hmm,
from the app design perspective, and also just in figuring out and focusing. I learned a lot of lessons just in terms of like talking to customers and things that I should have done a little bit differently, and talking with potential customers, and how, I think looking back, I would have done it probably a little bit differently,
mm-hmm,
um, so that we could have gotten to market. But, everything happens for a reason.
mm-hmm,
It led to
HabitAware.
the work at HabitAware. So it was kind of a stepping stone that needed to happen. I learned a lot about myself, about the process of building a business, about the environment here in Minneapolis. And yeah, it led to what is now my life's work.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks a lot. So I would actually like to double down on a couple of things that you just mentioned there, right? So in your journey at Kids Around, and as you said, right, like there were certain mistakes, and of course you learn from those mistakes because you try those hard routes to learn the right route, right? Um, so you said one thing that you said was, maybe talking to customers, something that you felt could have been different to kind
Yeah.
of go to market, right? It'd be great if you want to maybe share some insights about what you think is like now the right formula, right strategy, and things that you did wrong, which the audience can learn from and they can avoid that mistake in their journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that, I sort of just thought I knew what was needed without talking to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whereas with HabitAware, we had a good sense of what was needed, but we also worked with expert psychologists and asks for advice and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing where, the whole idea of the Kid Around app was so that mom and dad could find places to go,
Mm-hmm.
like the Minneapolis Children's Museum. And then the kiddo could be in control of the phone and take the photos, and it was like a photo scavenger hunt.
Mm-hmm.
But I think but we sort of like built what I had in my head and then tested it, whereas we probably should have did mocks or something and tested that, or maybe just asked more questions around, you know, what parents are actually doing with their kids so
Mm-hmm.
that we could have maybe hit a stronger feature set.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Would you mind if I ask a couple of more questions on this point itself, this topic? Is that
Yeah,
okay? Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So like you said, that you built something with an expectation that this is what the world needs, and probably then realized that maybe this is not exactly the problem that people were looking for, right? Or this is probably not the solution that people were looking for, right? I
Yeah.
mean, do you think so? So I just want to understand, and this is just because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs who are trying something, they kind of feel like they know, that this is what the world needs, and let's just build it and sell it, right? And then you build it, and like as a lot of articles say, most startups fail because they're building something that people don't need, right? So, but do you think if you would have, with this new knowledge set that you have, a new perspective about solving a problem that you have, if you had that time, then still Kids Around would have been successful? So let me be specific. So do you think that would have helped you narrow down to a correct problem, but you still have went ahead and built something that would have been successful? Or do you think you would have rather realized that you don't want to even go that route? uh,
I think we were on the right path.
mhm,
Like we had kind of shifted gears. I think we were on the right path when we started to kind of close up because HabitAware was starting to ramp and I could not handle both.
mhm,
I think we were getting to a place where it was in a good position to be able to, we built it in sort of a content, like a back end content management system where it
mhm,
was easier for one person to go in and kind of update. But I think at that point it just became like to your point, like I couldn't do both.
mhm. Okay. Yep. Yep. All
It was
right.
just yeah,
Mhm.
too much.
Okay. So that's how you decided that you probably would like to focus on habit and move on from the other
Exactly.
equipment.
Yeah.
Interesting. So cool. So that brings up to the main thing, HabitAware, right? So I also realized that you started Kids Around in 2014. That you worked on Kids Aware also till 2016, if I'm not wrong.
Hmm.
But you started Habits Aware in between, like in 2015,
Yeah.
right? So I just want to understand that scenario also better. Like, if you're focusing on one thing, when did you realize that you need to focus on something else as well? How was the journey of the transition? What do you think about commitments to two different problems at once? How was your experience?
Yeah, so yeah, there was an overlap. Basically, what was happening was I had just had a baby, and my hair pulling is also tied to my hormonal cycles. So it
Mhm.
started when I was in puberty, and it got worse during pregnancy and post-pregnancy, and so I was pulling a lot more. Also, I was, trying to start a startup, so I was highly stressed out. So I
Yep.
was pulling a whole lot more. And then my husband one day caught me without eyebrows and said, "What's going on?" And then I shared my secret that I have trichotillomania, which is the compulsion to pull out hair. And it's just, it's my brain's way of attempting to seek self soothing. And so hair pulling is also a sister condition to skin picking and nail biting. And collectively, they are called body focused repetitive behaviors. So that's BFRB, which I have on my shirt right now. Um, and so yeah, so he found out, shared what it was a little bit. He started doing some research, and then he started noticing when I was pulling. And we're
Mm-hmm.
sitting on the couch one day, and more than likely I was designing app screens for kid around while we're watching TV, and I'm pulling and thinking, and he just grabbed my hand, and that was kind of the moment where it was like, if I just had something that could notify me, maybe that would help me get out of this trance-like state and help me sort of retrain my restless hands to healthier strategies, healthier behaviors that can still help my brain feel that homeostasis. And so that's what we set out to try to build, just sort of for fun, to see if we could,
Mm-hmm.
um, just like nights and weekends.
Wow. Wow, amazing, amazing. So yeah, I mean, and also I think my bad. I should have maybe done a more formal introduction of HabitAware also in the beginning of this talk, but I'm sure the audience who came here are looking at the profile and know more about it. But still, I'll just share one sentence, and please help me add if there is anything. But HabitAware, as you mentioned in just your our last conversation, is specifically focused on solving the BFRB, body focused repetitive behaviors, different things like skin pulling, hair pulling, nail biting, and all these different behaviors. And how can you give triggers to help people change those behaviors? Um, right? Is there anything that you would
Yep.
like to
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So we've invented a smart bracelet that essentially a person trains and records their specific movement. So this is one of my movements, just kind of scanning for the hair. For someone who skin picks, it might be searching for a skin imperfection on their cheek or maybe their arm. Um, for someone who nail bites, it would be the actual nail biting behavior. And so it's looking for that repetitive motion, and when it senses that motion, it sends that vibration, which is just a signal, saying, hey, your hands are not where you want them to be, and to use that vibration as a moment of pause to kind of celebrate that you're doing this hard work of behavior change and to actually make a change. So for me, I've gotten to the point now where instead of reaching for my eyebrows when I'm feeling tense, I just reach for my bottle of water. Like it's become innate where I just grab the water now.
wow.
So I'll take a sip. After that, I try to keep it, fill it up every day before I leave for the office, kind of thing, or always have it next to me so that even if my hands do start feeling around, as soon as I notice, because now I don't even really wear the bracelet anymore, I'm aware enough that, oh, I'm here, let me grab something else, or let me, in using the device, I figured out that my worst pulling times were late at night when I was working. And
Mm-hmm.
so now my strategy for that is to just go to sleep and let the work be there in the morning because I'd rather have my hair. Um, and so just learning more about what triggers the behavior, what, is it stress, is it boredom, is it hunger, is it anxiety, is it, just like your insane to-do list,
Mm-hmm.
and actually take time to identify strategies that are going to mitigate that feeling of tension.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yes. So this is actually really really amazing personally for me to understand that you have built a product around a problem which is so interesting and unique. And I would agree, for example, when I was thinking more about HabitAware, I realized that I pick my beard hair actually, honestly. I don't know why, maybe it's for fun. I just
I
like.
mean, it's human nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's animal nature. Look at babies. Babies suck their thumb. Babies rub their head. Babies play with their hair. It's human nature to use your body to self-soothe.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that for some people it becomes, it's a spectrum. It becomes too much for them. And so that's who we are for. People that it becomes so much that it it creates this cycle of shame and guilt, and which then those negative feelings create that imbalance in your brain that seek the self-soothing that causes the hair pulling, that creates this vicious cycle of negative self-speak, internal shame, external, baldness or skin imperfections or nail infection. And so if you can break that cycle, then you can and start taking control of the behavior, then you can work with a treatment professional to really try to understand that underlying trigger. Like for me, it was stress, it was work stress. So
Mm-hmm.
I can just go to sleep, but for someone else, it might be general anxiety or other anxious thoughts where they may need to work with a treatment professional to get through the core negative beliefs of those thoughts
Mm-hmm.
so that they
Mm-hmm.
can really truly heal. So our focus is on the physical hand movements, helping people get to more of a growth mindset. Um, and with the second version of the device that we've just put to market, Keen 2, it includes habit reversal training, which is a gold standard of care that treatment professionals leverage in their clinic, that now you have on your wrist, that can help you, coach you through that training of going to healthier strategies.
Wow, awesome. So you just mentioned that it's so this behavior, and I think, for example, the hair picking, it's called trichomania.
Trichotillomania.
Trichotillomania. Thank,
Yeah,
thank you. It's a very hard word. So these behaviors, you're saying that they go to an extreme where it's then causing us deeper situations like guilt, shame, lack of self-confidence, and that's where it kind of becomes more scary, and that's where it becomes even subconscious, that we don't even realize that those are the behaviors that's causing
exactly.
that. And then you're saying that also some of it's like cyclic, right? Where low confidence, like behavior causes low confidence, and that then causes for more of that behavior to happen, right?
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. And you said that there could be different triggers for different people. It could be work stress, it could be like uh, personal conditions,
Could
and
be hormonal, it could be
hmm.
genetic. Like that's the other thing, is there's not enough research like
Hmm.
that it, I have personally seen a hormonal component, and I think there is some research that backs that up. It could be genetic, it could be just onset,
Hmm.
just sort of something happens, right?
Hmm.
Like I grew up sucking my thumb and twirling my hair, and then I started hair pulling. So it's kind of in us to use our body. You'll see like birds, monkeys. It's in human nature, it's in animal nature
Hmm.
to kind of do these things. It's just when it goes awry, when it
Yep.
kind of
Hmm.
flips the switch to an unmanageable state.
Wow. Wow. So let's go back to your journey of understanding this problem. You realize that you personally are facing this problem, right? And then, I mean, unlike so many others, you just decided to kind of take a step to solve this problem for yourself and for others, right? Which was again a great, you know, initiative. I think I really love what you guys are doing, and specifically that you went to harder markets. So I have a lot of questions. Let me go step by step. So
Mhm.
first thing was so now you realize that this is a problem that you're facing. You're already working on a product and trying to solve a problem, and then you decide to solve this another problem, right? Now, do you think you chose to solve this problem because it's in your nature to solve problems, like because you wanted to anyhow become a founder, or was it like this problem was so strong that you like did this problem made you a founder, or does being a founder made you solve this problem?
Oh, great question. I don't know. I think I'm a perfectionist, so I think my nature is to just try to fix things and solve
Hmm.
things, and I love making and doing and building, and so I think it was probably part that. I mean, I also grew up watching my dad run his own business, watching my mom run her dental
Hmm.
practice, watching all of the Indian community around me running their own businesses in
Hmm.
textiles and garments and jewelry and air condition repair and whatever it was, right? Like they were all independent, people in that way. And so I think it's also just in me from like a cultural standpoint of, this is what I know, this is what I've lived with and what I understand to be, I always kind of, I mean, I even played Office as a child, like where I would pretend I owned businesses and hotels and stuff. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it was always in me that I wanted to be a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think probably that desire coupled with I love to fix things and
Mm-hmm.
solve problems. Um, but yeah, and it was also just kind of this. I also like to hack and make and create, and the can we do it was really, really what pushed us. The
Mm-hmm.
can we actually make this thing? Will this actually? And then it was, oh, we can make it. Does it work? And then, oh, does it works? So do people want it? And just kind of this cycle of at each step we ask the question, to then decide, should we keep going with this?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. Awesome. So one thing that you just mentioned about like your background of, the community that you grew up, also kind of business owners. I have a very personal question for you, and that's kind of little off track. So we'll just keep it very quick. But are you from a Sindhi community? Because your name ends with a
Yeah,
Ni, right? Okay,
yeah, yeah,
awesome. So for the audience, like Sindh is a so basically in India before partition, Sindh was a community in the Pakistan area, and then during partition, a lot of there's migration and stuff. So I think it's known fact, or I don't know, it's a fact. It's a known concept that a lot of Sindhi people or people from that community end up becoming businessmen. They end up owning some or the other sort of business, starting jewelry, clothing, and stuff like that.
yeah.
So that's why I was curious.
Yeah, I actually just noticed you're an Ani too.
I am Yes, I am from the same community as well.
Yeah,
I
so
was.
yeah, so for those listening, little history lesson. In 1947, India was split into India and Pakistan, and so our families had to move from present-day Pakistan to present-day India, leaving behind everything,
Mm-hmm.
and starting from scratch. And so, yeah, the Sindhi community, it's also called the Baiband community, which means the merchant community. So that's like entrepreneurship is in our blood, being merchants, traders, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think that's absolutely part of it for sure. It's what we
Mm-hmm.
know. And yeah, like I used to go to my uncle's, office on Fashion Avenue in New York City and see all the clothing, and he was a supplier for Macy's and all these other
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
stores. So you see it and you pick up all these things about shipping and product, and it's just kind of in your, I mean, for me it was just sort of getting picked up. And exactly, yep,
Mhm.
yeah,
Wow, that's pretty cool. And also, actually, a fun fact for those who are listening, if you want to like the last name, if the last name ends with ANI, like Ani, that's where generally like I don't know how, but all Sindhi communities or all
yeah,
Sindhis have the last name ending with ANI.
yeah, you're either Italian or you're Cindy.
Awesome. Yes, cool. So coming back to our habit aware conversation. So now you realize that this is the problem, you want to solve it, but this is a very like it's a like generally when you're thinking of solving a problem and given your background experience of advertising industry marketing, right, this route of thinking of a hardware product is such a different route, right? It's such a strong step, or such like it needs a lot of things to change, a lot of learning curve, right? So
Yeah.
can you share more about that, like how did you go towards a hardware product, and things around that?
Yeah, so I mean, we didn't really know what to do. First, we started with, um, and I think this is sort of where I was saying before, we just with Kid Around, we just kind of jumped in. But
Mhm.
with HabitAware, we started with a lo-fi prototype, which we went to Michael's and bought a bracelet and jingle bells, and whenever my hand would go up, it would jingle. And so, okay, that would was kind of working, but I'm also a hand talker, so it was going off a lot more than I needed it to, but it was enough to say, okay, knowing when this is happening helps.
Mhm.
And so then we started figuring out, okay, who can help us build this as, from the technical standpoint,
Mhm.
because and so that's kind of another place where being in the tech community in Minneapolis, having put my feet in the water, if you will, going to events, starting to build something and present it and make friends in the community. I started sharing not just my mental health secret, but my startup idea secret to see if friends in the community either could help us build it or knew of people. And
Mhm.
so that was sort of how we started amassing a kind of alpha tester list, because people would come up to me after I'd announce publicly that I pull out my hair and I have this idea and I'm looking for someone to help us build it, and then they'd come up and be like, "Look at my nails! I bite my nails," or "I pull my hair too," or "I'm a skin picker." And so, we were amassing a group of close people that could help us test eventually, but then others would say, "Oh, you should reach out to this person, or you should go to this event, and maybe you'll meet someone there." And so that's kind of how the door, like I was saying before, some doors shut and some doors opened
Okay.
to us meeting John and Kirk, our two technical co-founders, whom without their hardware and software and firmware expertise and education, and quite frankly their passion for the idea and for the community that we are working to help serve, we would not have been able to build this. So it's a huge testament to their like willingness to take a risk on this idea with us, to really spend their years as the four of us as co-founders trying to develop not just one but now two products for the BFRB community.
Wow. Yep. So amazing. And just a little quick follow up on that. So this community, BRFB community, when you were trying to solve this problem, you mentioned that, since you have to validate the hypothesis this time, right? And you have to find this community, find these right folks. And I think you just touched upon like the idea of finding this community was to, going to local events, trying to figure out those folks. Anything else that you want to share about like how did you kind of in those early days figured out like other people who are having the same problem and like validate the different hypotheses?
Yeah. So locally we were able to meet people, but then I mean I had been in online support groups for years before that, so
Mhm.
it was just I was already part of the community. Um, and yeah, it was just cool to be able to tell folks I'm working on this thing, who wants to help, who wants to test, and that's how and then we went to a mental health conference, that was sponsored by the TLC Foundation for Body Focused Repetitive Behaviors. That's the
Mhm.
major nonprofit in this space.
I see.
Um, and that's where we met like a huge group of people who are severely underserved by the current healthcare system, and we have a solution that can help them. And so we've taken it directly to them to be able to leverage our smart bracelet and our mobile app system to build awareness of where their restless hands are, and then retrain their brain to these healthier strategies so that over
Mhm.
time they're taking control and they're changing their life quite literally, as it then sort of domino effects to, if you if your replacement strategy is
Exactly.
water, then it just, your body gets healthier, and then you it's weird, like then you don't really want the burger when you go out for lunch. You're actually like, "Oh, I'll have the salad today." And it's just these little things that slowly change your life, and you feel a little bit a little bit lighter mentally, a little bit lighter in your step, and hopefully over time you feel, all that shame, all that guilt gets replaced with confidence because you're doing the hard work, and
Mhm.
you're um and not everyone's up for that, but if you are, like, it really is such a powerful thing.
Yep. Wow. Thank you. Thanks for that share. That
Yeah.
was pretty close. Um, so let's see. Now, a few more questions around just a habit aware journey. So a lot happened from the day you found this problem, did a lot of interviews to kind of reach out to different solutions. Now you have like a hardware product with software app. You have version 2 coming up, right? And of course there's been a lot in this journey. You have like one MN Cup award, for example, 2018, and like a lot. So let's uh, maybe focus on a couple of like interesting steps in the journey that you would like to reflect on and share, mainly from the perspective of what you learned that people can reflect and also learn from, right? If you would like to maybe share some interesting steps in the journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the steps that I should definitely highlight is we went to HAX, which is a hardware accelerator program in Shenzhen, China.
Mm-hmm.
And without that, I mean, they were an extension of our team from the mechanical engineering, marketing, um, production, manufacturing, industrial design, like all of the gaps that our team had,
Mm-hmm.
they were able to fill. And then obviously just hugely supportive as investors in the company and just taking us through all these different lessons and just really pushing us to push to move fast. And without that, we would have been moving a whole lot slower. Like I think that was an amazing program to really teach us the flow and to keep us motivated to keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing, have new, like, just kind of keep working and to keep building relationships to build a proper product. So we left that 3-month program with a device that was pretty much almost market ready. Like it was so far from the prototype that we took into there. And so that was a phenomenal experience. And I think if you can go through an accelerator program of any kind,
Mm-hmm.
ideally specific to your um, niche, that is a really great thing to try to do because there's so much knowledge and mentorship, uh, and even just structure. Like even though it was chaos. Every day was chaos, but there was still this overlying structure, and then just the kind of camaraderie of we're all doing this. We're all working on our own things, but we're all kind of in it together.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. So you said you were sharing a couple of interesting steps. So the first step was accelerator. Is there any other thing that you felt was like game changer, like the accelerator program?
Yeah, there's a lot. Let me think. Then we also have received, working in mental health. Our goal is to serve an underserved population.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 1 in 20 Americans has a body focused repetitive behavior, but again, it's not in our everyday language. Depression, anxiety, OCD, those are in our language.
Mm-hmm.
Bipolar disorder, but yet a lot of those are still not really understood by people. Um, but with something as common as this, it's really shocking that people don't know that they're mental health conditions. There's still a lot of judgment and shame. People will just say, ew, that's gross, or stop doing that, or, why are you doing that? And so for us, getting to work with researchers through our National Institute of Health
Mm-hmm.
um, research grant to actually help prove out the work that we're doing uh, has been supremely beneficial. And just working with expert clinicians to review our app, review the technology, and kind of give the thumbs up that yeah, this is the system that we believe is going to help people reduce these behaviors, has been another, I think, highlight.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also now have a phase 1 and phase 2 National Science Foundation grant to work on novel technologies for these behaviors. So the research grants have been another highlight for sure.
Awesome. Wow. Wow. So you said journey in the accelerator, and of course, going deeper into the community and working on the research aspect of has been like the few key things in the journey so far. Awesome. Great. All right. I think I'm definitely picking a lot of your brain and so many questions in this
Yeah.
journey. So I'll probably come towards like few ending questions and we can
Okay.
quickly wrap up. I this one question I really want to ask in terms of marketing. So you said that you initial part of your life was advertising industry, marketing and stuff like that, but it was very different than HabitAware, right? So what's your experience like marketing for a startup versus marketing for your previous experience, like ad industry and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah. So the companies that a lot of the clients that I had were in sort of general product, right? So um, some of the companies were Frito-Lay's brands, and then trying to think.
Oh, I can tell you, Target, Deluxe, Cadillac.
Yeah, yep. So they're all like kind of more mass market products, um, and so a lot of it was focused on TV advertising.
Mm-hmm.
and then some of it was like banner ads, and a lot of it for the food brands, a lot of magazine print ads were kind of the focus
Mm-hmm.
of the work that we would do, the
Mm-hmm.
creative.
Mm-hmm.
All of it always overarch some sort of overarching campaign or message, but the mediums were basically print, TV, and banner ads, which so that that's like the early 2000s. Now no one's clicking on banner ads. um, uh, so for us, really, I don't know if you know a gentleman named Seth Godin, but he is
Mm-hmm.
a marketing guru. Uh, and he talks a lot about how the product is the marketing. And that really for us is true. It's it it does what it says it's going to do. It helps people take control of these conditions, and then they share it. They share it with their therapist who has never
Mm-hmm.
heard of it, or their therapist tells their client. They share it in social media groups, and they pass it along. And my job, I don't really consider myself a marketer, but my goal is to really support the community and to help them get to where I am today, where I don't feel, no longer feel ashamed that I have this condition where I pull my hair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so for us, it's really about nurturing that community. It's about doing webinars around different topics to support people and help them shift their mindset and really, give them hope that there are solutions and that in doing the work, you can get there. And so I think for us, yes, we do, all the typical advertising that needs to happen for people to find us. Um, but really just really focusing on the needs of the community, ensuring that our
Mm-hmm.
product delivers on those needs, and having the community be our greatest advocates, quite
Mm-hmm.
frankly. And in return, we are advocating for them with, awareness and doing things like speaking at TEDx to share my journey and raise awareness of the conditions so that when someone is ready to share, hopefully they're met with the compassion that they truly deserve instead of that you gross that I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
And so my hope is that the work that we serve are seen as, having purpose. Oh, I don't know what happened, but I lost your sound.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I had a small sudden glitch in my computer and I lost uh, but I could hear you. So you ended up with saying that um, the purpose, right? And that's exactly what I was actually about to ask. So that's such a nice direction towards the next question, because you also mentioned in the beginning, not in the beginning, but just a few questions ago, about the tech team that you met, and you were really grateful about the passion that they have and the purpose that they you know so I just wanted to know that in your journey as an entrepreneur, right, what is the key thing, or in anybody's journey as an entrepreneur, what do you think is the key, like, uh, what was the most difficult situation and difficult situations that came, and what was the key attitude or thing as an entrepreneur that you felt kept you going?
Okay, the hardest thing is just the making, the doing, the getting, like the nitty gritty, right?
Mhm.
Like everyone reads the headline, right? But it's all the little bits of it's all the getting through the daily to do, if you will.
Uh-huh.
That's
Mhm.
the hardest thing, right? Like making sure that you're prioritizing and you're doing what needs to be done, um and sometimes your day just doesn't go the way that you want it to, and that's the hardest thing is just staying focused and the answer to the second question is kind of how you do it. Is for me, it's I we get emails every day that say thank you for saving my life, thank you for
Wow. Mhm.
inventing this, thank you for um creating this device, it's helped me build my awareness. It's helped me learn about what triggers me. The one quote that has stuck with me the most because it hit so close to home was this mom who shared how her son used to just run home off the bus into his room because he was so ashamed of what he had pulled all day
Mm-hmm.
at school. And now he comes home and he wants to talk about his keen stats, like what
Wow.
was happening, right? And so shifting that conversation from shame and blame to like, did you pull today, to, oh, tell me what happened. Let's look at the stats. Tell me what happened during, at around 2 p.m. Oh, that's your math class. Maybe let's make sure that you have a fidget in that class, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe is the subject matter hard? Let's get a tutor, right? So then you can actually work with what the underlying issue is. And so that to me, remembering that story, remembering that change, that now this child is on a different trajectory because he's learning to take care of himself in a healthier way at 10, 11 years old instead of 40 years old,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when all the ish goes down, that oh my god, I got to do this, and oh gosh, this broke, and oh, the package is lost, or whatever it is, you can take a breath and you can say, but we're making good change for people in their lives, and all the ish that flows doesn't matter anymore.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. When you get that positive vibe from what you're creating. Wow. Awesome. Cool. So I actually promised that I'm going to not take so much of your time, but I ended up taking a lot of your time because I
All
have
good. It was
so
a really
many
great
questions.
conversation, so thank you.
Actually, I do want to. So with the wrap up, so in the end, generally, I we wrap up with some things. So I have, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions to let you then give you last 4 minutes to share on that, and that's regarding the local community. So in Minnesota and Minneapolis, the local community, you are. It's been such a great journey. I wanted to know what your difference have been like. How do you think about the tech community here or the startup community here versus your other experiences? And then, you are part of LaunchMN, BetaMN, and so many other resource groups. So maybe just share, for student entrepreneurs or local entrepreneurs, what are the best ways to utilize the resources that we have here in the community, and anything that you want to share around that. That'll be
Yeah. So I don't have, like, I was not in the New York entrepreneurial community, when I was growing up or living there. So I don't have anything to compare Minneapolis to, but I truly believe that the Minneapolis ecosystem that I moved into in 2010, 2011, um, was just very welcoming, very collaborative, very communal. Uh, People just have been very supportive of the work that we've been doing since the get-go. Um, and there's just so many organizations. When we moved here, there was just Coco, which is now Fuel Collective, as
Mm-hmm.
the co-working space, and there was and there still is Tech.mn, which is the kind of startup news, uh, online news platform, and that's where I found out about a lot of events and stuff. So that's another great resource. There's BetaMN, which I'm now on an advisor on their board, uh, which does which again, when we started, it was just a science fair for startups, just like a
Mm-hmm.
annual event. People could come and show. 7 startups showed their work, and now that's turned into an accelerator program. So that's another great resource. There's Lunar Startups based in St. Paul, which is another wonderful startup accelerator program focused on minority founders and underserved founders. Um, there's a lot. If for students who are looking to figure out, like, okay, how do we get into this, because now there's a little bit of a diaspora, and COVID's kind of changed things with smaller events or no events. But I think that's slowly going to start changing again this spring and summer, so I would definitely keep watch on BetaMN for events. Tech.mn will have more events. um, and then Twin Cities Startup Week will be in October.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a great place to gain knowledge about different industries, different technologies, different organizations, and meet folks. Like you said, make friends. Um, And then there's also meetup.org. Yep. Yeah. Meetup.org was how I found like the meetups that I would go to on like the chatbots and the mobile applications and all this other stuff. So, I like to think of it as spaghetti. Just throw yourself out there and see what sticks. Like you will make friends, you may not make friends, but the more you go to different events, the more you'll learn what is happening in the Twin Cities and where you might say, oh, that sounds interesting. I'd like to work on that, or I'd like to join that organization and help, you know, run events around a certain passion point.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks a lot. Those were like great set of resources. So I think we are on top of the hour and I don't want to take more time than what we committed on. So thanks a lot, Anila. This was amazing. I got to learn a lot. It was great. Thanks a lot for giving your
Thank
time.
you. I really appreciate your time. You had there's a lot of good questions, so thanks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. Thanks a lot.